The Bad Batch series finale has finally arrived. One last episode, one final fight. You know, when I first started covering the Bad Batch back in 2021, I don't think many of us understood the implications of this show, how important it is to the overall Star Wars universe. But now we do. We had tons of questions about Omega, and now we finally have our conclusive answers. This episode was, I would say, shocking, in the best kind of way, especially the epilogue, the last scene, which is going to be the main topic of this video, but don't worry my dear friends, we are going to do a full breakdown and review as well. But I just want to focus on some major scenes and their contribution to the Star Wars timeline. I'm going to try and answer some of the big questions, but this episode was something very, very special indeed. And what I think I love most is how they proved a theory we had from day one. Omega was the star of this show, but the last scene proved what we've all suspected. She is going to have a major role in the rebellion, and I think she's going to meet up with her old friend, Hera Syndulla. And I'm more convinced than ever before, Omega is going to make the jump to live action in the New Republic timeline, maybe Ahsoka Season 2, or Dave Filoni's movie, or a second season of Boba Fett. But they've left the possibilities wide open and minimised any casualties within the batch. They finally got to retire on Pabu, and Crosshair was wrong, they are still a squad. But I think they've set up more Star Wars animation and more for the clones. This might have been the Bad Batch's final fight, but there is so much more to come. Maybe not for Hunter, Wrecker and Crosshair, but what about Echo and Rex? I don't know if they're going to announce something on May the 4th. I'm very pleased Echo survived. I'm hoping for more, but more so than anything, it's fantastic, Omega gets a future. The epilogue, the time jump really took me aback. I'm so glad they did this. D. Bradley Baker spoke about a kind of epilogue the other day, but fans didn't know if he was talking literally or just figuratively about the last episode, but no, he was being very literal. In the last scene of the current day, Hunter tells Omega it's up to them, the life they want to choose. They're finally free. Tantis has been decommissioned, Hemlock is dead, Rampart is dead, they're liberated, the Empire didn't care anymore. It was up to them to choose their own fate. And by the way, my dear friends, did you catch this? Tarkin ordered all of the funding that was going to Wayland to be redirected to Project Stardust, his Death Star project with Krennic. A really awesome connection to Rogue One, probably Andor Season 2, after that was teased at the end of Episode 12, and A New Hope. Are we going to see Tantis again? Is Thrawn going to take over during the New Republic? We don't know, but the Zillo Beast wreaked havoc, the Bad Batch had to fight off troopers, but for now it's been abandoned. So returning to the last scene, Hunter tells Omega they can be whatever they want, and so later in the timeline, about a decade later, closer to the time of the original trilogy, Omega, maybe through Captain Rex, Echo, or Hera, expresses her want to join the rebel ranks, and her character design looks amazing. I love the jacket, her Bad Batch emblem, commemorating her clone roots, her bandana, derivative of Hunter, her hairstyle, and the way they aged her up. I'm eager to learn the next time we're going to see her. If they were ever to revisit the Rogue Squadron movie by Patty Jenkins, that could be the perfect opportunity. She's going to become a rebel pilot, bringing her developing skills from the first 2 seasons full circle. Ties to Hera and even Tech. She will be a great asset for the Rebel Alliance. So before Omega departs for the stars, onto a new adventure, we see that Hunter is still very protective of her despite the fact she's now an adult. He's got advanced aging like his other brothers, but not Omega, so he's definitely not as able as he used to be, and he's urging Omega to be safe. What was so emotional is the fact he still sees her as a little girl, the girl they picked up on Camino just after Order 66, and she tells him to look after Batcher while she's away, but also Crosshair and Wrecker, confirming they too are still alive. So my question is, by the time of Star Wars Rebels, are they still alive? Do Rex, Gregor and Wolf know about this? They probably do, but I guess the reason they don't contact them or get them involved with the rebellion is because they are no longer physically able, and they're done with the life of being a soldier on the run. Such a nice touch. As Omega departs Pabu, she has text goggles on her dashboard. It reminded me of Hera's picture of Kanan. Something that means so much to her is always there in front of her as a reminder of sacrifice, family, and what was lost. And throughout the episode, not just at the end, Omega was applying all the lessons she learned from her brothers along the way. Using the Zillo Beast as a distraction is something Echo would have done, and in the same way she tells Wrecker not to worry about heights, she says the same thing to one of the children. And my favourite quote from this episode, which really comes full circle at the end: "Focus on what's ahead, not what's below." This is the message of the Bad Batch. You know, the clones had such an identity crisis after the war. Even Rex once admitted they didn't know how to feel about it, because they were created as an army of the Republic. There's an identity crisis without war. They really didn't know what to do with themselves. It was very much existential. So for some of the surviving clones, the Rebel Alliance brought a new light, a renewed sense of purpose. Moving on from the past, making your own choices, loyalty, brotherhood. This is what the Bad Batch is all about, encompassed so beautifully in this final episode. I won't lie to you, I did shed quite a few tears. Omega is on to a new and different horizon. Fighting the Empire, she has every precedent to do so. But what about the fate of Emery Carr? Echo suggests she could be very useful in the Senate, helping Senator Chuchi from Pantora fight for clone rights. You know, I was so convinced going into this episode there were going to be some deaths, but I couldn't be more happy there wasn't. They did come close, Hemlock capturing them, trying to reprogram them. There were some very close calls, but no casualties on that front, which I loved. And something I said before the season began, I'm really happy the Bad Batch didn't go in the direction of bringing Tech back. His legacy and the emotional weight of his death was so symbolically significant in episode 15. So now that we've explored the ending, let's talk about some other major scenes. There were some interesting references and callbacks to other projects and other shows, and more specifically Nala Se. I have a major question. If Hemlock is dead, Tantis defunct, the databank lost, Nala Se dead, Rampart's dead, and confirmation there was nothing salvageable, how come by the time of the New Republic, Dr. Pershing, the Client, Gideon, and other Imperials have access to Kaminoan genetic research? Something confirmed in Dr. Pershing's presentation. Like I said, I don't think we've seen the last of Tantis. Somehow by the time of Palpatine's death, it gets into the hands of the Remnant, and eventually the First Order. But it's also possible Palpatine had other Tantises. There are other storehouses on Wayland, and maybe other secret projects across the galaxy. I also loved seeing some of Hemlock's clone operatives, and no, they're not tech. One or two of them had kind of tech similarities in their design, but alas, they weren't. They were very strong though, and serve as the prototype to what will eventually be Dark Troopers. And did you guys spot the visual parallel, the visual similarity between the Dark Troopers in Mando, and in the scene where Hemlock lets them out? And it was in that moment I realised Moff Gideon and Hemlock have a lot of similarities. Not just their interest in cloning and genetic research, but their sycophantic obsession with trying to emulate a Sith, without actually being one. I'm sure if he hadn't died, Hemlock would have tried to clone himself, and make himself Force sensitive. He's aware of M-counts, he was in charge of Project Necromancer, and there was a theory stating the reason he's got a shaking hand, the gloved one, is because he tried to clone himself, or volunteered as part of Palpatine's project, but it could also be due to experimentation that led him to be immune to the sleep gas, which played a role in this episode too. And something which I adore is the fact this episode was a long one. That was what we all hoped for, a long finale, wrapping up several plot points. Many fans were saying this was a very safe ending. They could have gone for something more daring. But like I say, my dear friends, this might have been the end of this show, but I don't think we've seen the last of these characters. And I'm hoping D. Bradley Baker and Michelle Ang get to voice their characters again when the episode started and gave us that faded logo. I think deep down we all knew it was about to get real, similar to what they did with the black and white logo in Star Wars Rebels after Kanan died. And one of the best parallels in the episode was Omega reprogramming the medical droid, being a tactic the Bad Batch used in the very first episode. Like I said, she learned from her squad, and there was something clever, metaphorically speaking, about Crosshair losing his hand. It's letting go of the past. It's gone. That chapter, Tantis, imprisonment, conflict of loyalty, it's all behind him. A reminder of what they've been through. And at some points I fully expected Wrecker to be the one to die. I'm glad he didn't. But I must say, I didn't expect total survival, but a solid ending. It's been an absolute pleasure to cover these episodes, my dear friends. We did it. We got to the end. And thank you so much for being part of this journey that's been 3 seasons of absolute joy. Thank you for watching my videos, being part of this community. And if you've not done so already, please be sure to hit that big red subscribe button down below and let me know your thoughts of the final episode. Have an amazing day, and may the Force be with you, always.